Giorno Giovanna running up against the likes of Hero X is actually a video idea I had a while back after I watched To Be Hero X, but after the anime died down quicker than I expected, I didn't want to upload the video just for it to flop. However, now that Steel Ball Run is coming out, I feel like this is the best chance to record and edit this video. This is basically going to be old gen hacks merchant running up against new gen hacks merchant. In other words, it's going to be different than most videos I do on my channel. Now, when it comes to actual physical strength, I would have to side with X as he scales above the likes of Queen Maeve and that one chick on steroids, and this one feat here just completely outdoes most of the stuff that Giorno has ever shown. Of course, when we look at Giorno, that's not really what we expect from him. Actually, that's not really what we expect from most JoJo characters. What I mean by this is Giorno's got the ability to summon the extension of his soul, a stand, basically a spiritual entity capable of fighting other spiritual entities. With his stand, he can create life, basically constructs like trees, maybe animals, and he can do it using just inanimate objects with no actual life. And if he were to actually strike a human, he can actually fill them in life and make their senses go berserk. So yes, that is several things that X actually has to look out for. Another thing is Giorno, when he unlocked GER, attained an ability known as Return to Zero. Basically, he can return any action to zero, making it to where they'll never arrive to the truth of that action. If you were to die, such as maybe Diavolo dying against Giorno, he can actually return your death to zero and make you go through an infinite loop. In other words, you'll never arrive to the truth of your death. When it comes to Hack's abilities though, X himself is no slouch either, as he can basically warp the reality of the universe around him by just snapping his fingers. He even changed the animation style several times throughout the anime, which is pretty insane actually. If he were to snap his fingers at Giorno, then he would probably just remove the stand from him and make him completely powerless. Or he could probably just turn him into paper like he did Dragon Boy. So when it comes to a straight up fight, Giorno probably wouldn't be able to match him when it comes to a straight up physical brawl, but they both have really good hacks, and they actually work on the same exact level. If I had to decide who probably had better hacks, I would probably side with X, because if GER gets stripped away from Giorno, there's probably no way he could actually bring it back. Whereas there's no actual way Giorno could strip any of X's abilities from him. What's more is GER is a reactionary ability. Then again, so is X, I guess. Now the real big issue is, who's going to land a hit first? Because that's the kind of fight this is. Giorno with his stand can fight spiritual entities, so he should just be able to negate X's durability, as X has never shown any resistance to soul-based attacks. In other words, the deciding factor will actually be speed. In To Be Hero X, we actually have a really good speed meta. And this is E-Soul being able to grab lightning out of the sky, so we already know it's natural lightning. And characters like Ghostblade is capable of reacting to his lightning pretty easily. And obviously the likes of Queen should scale above them, and X should obviously scale above her. So you can get him to anywhere between massively hypersonic to potentially sub-relativistic depending on how you scale that. Of course, this really doesn't match up to the likes of Giorno, as the likes of Silver Chariot in Part 3 Stardust Crusaders was capable of tracking the trajectory of Hanged Man, a light speed stand, and was able to cut him up pretty badly. Of course, this is with Polnareff admitting that he normally wouldn't be able to catch this, so I would probably say relativistic speeds at best. But then we have characters like Diavolo just outright outscaling him, as well as Giorno just beating the shit out of Diavolo, and Diavolo admitting that he could barely react to his attacks. What's more is his stats are actually unmeasurable according to the current stand rod in Part 5, which is pretty impressive, so I would actually believe that Giorno should be faster in light, though he would probably still not compare to other parts. In other words, if I had to side with anybody winning this fight, I would have to side with Giorno Giovanna. If he closes the distance and starts beating the shit out of X, then it's kinda over. Especially if he returns his death to zero. I do want to say, however, that I do think that X would actually stand a chance if he were giving knowledge on what Giorno's capabilities were, as he would probably be able to just try and escape Giorno's stand range, in which case he can then use his abilities and win that way. But I really don't think that would really be fair to the likes of Giorno, as that is essentially saying that we give X knowledge, whereas Giorno would not have knowledge. And I think if Giorno just had knowledge on what X could do, the fight's just going to end that much faster, because Giorno's going to be like, oh fuck, and just start beating the brakes off of him. What do you know? Giorno actually won on my channel! Now you must admit that I'm not a JoJo hater, you bastards. Anyways, if you're interested in any more videos, you must like, subscribe, and share my video. What's more is you should also check out my spreadsheet. If you're interested in any videos, then here's where you buy them. And if you have any anime suggestions or any manga suggestions, comment down below and I will check it out when I can. Peace everybody.